the beauty of free market capitalism, which we have so distorted with this kind of giant crony capitalist system that we live under, is that in a free market, if there's no government involvement and you're in a free market, there's still all of those incentives that you're talking about. All these companies want to make as much money as possible, but what it kind of does is channel that into something where, like, all right, how do we make as much money as possible? Well, you got to make something that people really want to buy. You got to make something that they really want. You know what I mean? And that, I'm not suggesting there can't be any corruption in that type of system, but once you get the government involved in it, now the way to make the most money is to force things on people. You get the government to write a rule, and now the people have no choice. And so these incentives that can somewhat exist in harmony with doing good for society in some conditions is now totally corrupted, right? Like it's totally. So even if you think about something with, like, let's say there's you have like the vaccine or a vaccine or something like that, and theoretically there's no collusion between the government and pharmaceutical companies, and you want to get people to take your vaccine. Well, you're going to have to, like, convince them that it's really good for them. You're going to have to sell them on, like, no, look at this data. Look at how much this reduced the rate of death from this. Look at all this great information about the vaccine. But if you have the government involved, then you're like, well, you know what? Just go lobby the government to make it mandatory. Then we'll rake in profits. That's so much more of a profitable direction to go. And so, all these things get corrupted, and particularly today, we just, the size of the U.S. federal government is the biggest organization in the history of the world. There's not even a close second.
And it's got survival instincts.
Yeah.
It doesn't want to give up ground. It doesn't want to give up power. It wants to keep expanding. It wants more funding for its projects. It wants to hire more people to deal with something in an incompetent way. And it's not like the free market where, if it's incompetent, like, there's going to be a competitor that comes along and does a better job, and you're going to lose the market. No. Well, you
ever look at if you look at, like, the list of the richest counties in America, and they're like, I forget the exact numbers. It's
all lobbyists.
Well, it's like 10 of the. They're all, not all, but the vast majority of them are right outside Washington D.C. and right outside New York City. And so, like, what is that? Is that capitalism? Do you go to Washington D.C. and you go, oh, there's more millionaires there than there are in any other part of the world in the suburbs around Washington D.C.? Is that because there's great big factories and they're making so much stuff that everyone wants to buy? It's like, no, that's because our centralized federal government spends over $6 trillion a year. And where does that money go? It goes into all the people who are connected to government. And why is it outside of New York City? Is it because in New York City they have great big factories where they're making all the things that everyone wants? It's like, no. And that's not because of capitalism. That's because Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard, and now it's just this phony casino Wall Street money. So it's everybody, all the people at the top who are making all of this money, they're not making it. It'd be one thing if you're like John D. Rockefeller before he went and colluded with the government, and you created Standard Oil, and now there's this big oil company, and you're making the country richer by this. But they're not making the country richer. They're extracting wealth out of the rest of the population. It's all just extracted. I mean, literally, the federal spending is extracting wealth out of people by taxing them and then spending it, literally taking the money from people who work and giving it to politically connected people. And then the Wall Street money is just printing money and then making your dollar less valuable. So just in another way, extracting wealth from the people. And this is basically why we live in this populist moment right now, where so many people are so freaking furious at the establishment, because they're right to be.